What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Flow State with yours truly, Harry Mack. In this episode, we recap the Euro Tour. We talk about broadening our influences. We ask the question, what words make for the best freestylers? And we also ask the question, will AI freestylers replace humans anytime soon? I hope not. Thanks so much for checking in. This is episode 40, y'all. Let's
this
go.
Is from my Flow State. Add it. Yeah. Y'all know we back at it. Ain't it crazy how the mind works magic? We gon' show you the method behind the madness.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Flow State with yours truly, Harry Mack. I'm very excited to be back in the studio doing another one of these, and I got my man Sam with me as always. What's going on, Sam?
What up, man?
We're here. We're back at it, man. Back from the Euro Tour.
Yeah, bro. Feels good to be back.
Feels very good to be back. It was an epic tour. Shout out to everybody that came out and rocked with us. 3 weeks, little over 3 weeks. And yeah, definitely legendary. Some of the biggest shows we have ever done to date, which was crazy. Started off with 2 festivals. Both of them were massive. Down the Rabbit Hole Festival was, I think, the biggest crowd we've ever done.
I think so, too, yeah.
They're telling us it was somewhere in the realm of 20,000 people. Is that right? When I say that, it doesn't sound right. And then I'm like, that is what they said, right?
I've been told that. I've been told that as well. So, and I'm not going to fight it.
Insane, man. Insane. Huge crowd at that festival. And, but we also rocked a 700-person venue in Vienna. And that was also legendary in its own right. And an even smaller show in London that we did off the books for a charity event. So it was fun because it was really the full gamut from a smaller, more intimate kind of club setting all the way up to the big festival tent. And I like that, I like kind of exploring those different environments and seeing what works for different sizes of audience. So that was really fun for me. But through and through, man, the shows were just legendary. The fans really showed up. The energy was super high. The temperature was super high as well. They don't really do air conditioning in most of these venues through Europe. So we were there in the dead of summer, and it was definitely hot. Definitely some of the hottest I've ever been on stage, temperature-wise, I mean. And, shout out to the fans, man, for showing up, like, in a real way in spite of the heat and really hanging out the whole time, like, and giving their all, like, getting hyped, throwing their hands up, jumping around, going crazy like always, even in that heat. That was super impressive to me.
Yeah, it's cool to see. And yeah, you're right, bro. Those were some of the hottest shows ever. Like, because we have the festivals where it's like, it's outdoors. It's just really, the biggest like space possible. And then we did headliners, and a lot of those headliners were just like in those kind of underground clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the heat was cranked to a max, man. I swear I was like seeing heat waves through the lens.
Yeah, no, for real, dude. I'm surprised like the gear didn't mess up more or like just overheat and break down. I think there was like a slight issue with the turntables in Vienna because it was so hot. And Jazz was saying it might have been due to the heat. So who knows? But man, I had an absolute blast. It was so fun. It felt good to get back out there. This was a shorter run. We did 6 shows officially and then a 7th kind of secret show. So 7 shows in total. And we filmed some content out there as well. But it was a shorter run. But yeah, it had been more than a year since I had gone out on the road at all. So felt really good to get back out on stage and just to, get back into it, man. It was super exciting. And this was the first tour that my daughter joined us on. So that was pretty epic.
So cool.
Yeah, really awesome. That, of course, lots of unknowns around that. Like, how's it going to work out? Is she going to be cool? Like, is she going to get down with this? She's just she's a year old now. She turned 1 on the road with us, which was really fun. But anytime you try something new like that, especially something as big as bringing your soon-to-be 1-year-old daughter on tour, it's like, oh my God, like, how's this going to work? And she did awesome, man. And it was so cool to have her out with us. And she actually got to see me perform live for the first time from side stage at Down the Rabbit Hole Festival in the Netherlands, which was super special. She had her huge ear protection headphones on and was just like, yelling out from the side. So that was definitely like a tearjerker for me and just really awesome to have that moment. But yeah, man, another legendary tour for the books. Shout out to Europe, dude. Shout out to all the fans. Got to see some new places. been to Germany many times, but first time in Munich, first time in Austria, playing Vienna, and first time in Norway, which was like beyond gorgeous, man. Norway really, really blew my mind. I had no idea what we were stepping into. But we were at the Molde Jazz Festival. So the town is called Molde, and it's like a 25,000 population. It's a very small town. I think they said 25,000 people there. And they said the population basically doubles when the festival happens. So I guess 25,000 more people come into town for the for the actual festival. But it was beautiful. It was on the water, and apparently you could see. What was the stat? Like 222 mountains or something like that were visible in the surroundings, which is crazy. And it was the furthest north that I had ever ventured, which was also very trippy because it was daylight until like 11:30 p.m. And so it was like hard to fall asleep, at night. And it was just hard to transition from day to night, but it was absolutely beautiful. And my first time playing on a jazz festival. So that was cool too, to kind of connect those dots, me having my background as a jazz musician, to kind of bring things full circle and be invited to perform at a jazz festival obviously as a crossover act. My set is mainly a hip hop show. But it was a cool full circle moment, and cool that we incorporate the drums into my live set now as well. And I get to kind of play this open jazz solo in the middle of the set to kind of pay homage to my roots as well. So, just an epic time, man. Shout out to Europe.
Norway was so dope. That was my first time being there as well as the first or the farthest north. And the lighting was odd. It like never even fully got dark. Like it was kind of like the darkest it got was like dawn. Like it was that kind of glowing vibe. But super dope, man. I want to go back. That like whole place was a screensaver, and that like the Jazz Fest. There is like one of the longest running jazz festivals in the world. Like it started in like the 1960s, I think. So that was really dope to just go see. And it's like the whole town's kind of in on it. It's like anyone that you walk past on the street, like it's everyone's kind of connected during that jazz fest there. It's just really cool, man.
Definitely, yeah, and like so many of the giants from the jazz genre have performed at the Molde Jazz Fest, because it spans so many decades. So like Miles Davis performed there. I can't remember everybody else, but it's like, all the cats at one time or another did a set there. So really cool to tap into that lineage a little bit and feel those vibes and feel that energy.
Dude. And shout out to the Netherlands as well, because that's where we had a festival. That was down the rabbit hole. Rockwork there was dope too. That was Belgium, but the Netherlands showed up again. For a huge festival, and like, dog, what's it like? Like that crowd was massive. What kind of goes through your head, like stepping out on something like that?
Oh, dude, it's crazy. I mean, shout out to the Netherlands. They're always our biggest shows, like basically at all stages. Because we had done that
2 in a row.
Previous festival
on one tour.
Was the biggest of the time, which was I think 10,000 people, and this was apparently double that. Which I'm still just like, we need a fact check, but hey, man, that's what we're being told. It was massive, but no, it's so it's such an adrenaline rush, man. Like it's different than anything else. It's different than the headlining shows, which I mean, the biggest headlining show we did, I think, was in London last year for Anomaly, and that was, I think, a 4,000 cap room. And I don't know if it was completely sold out, but it was close to sold out. So that was almost 4,000 people in a room. But there's something different about jumping out in front of 20,000 people in a massive tent and just like this filling this like open space. It's literally like a sea of people. It's kind of like unbelievable. And I feel like it's like some gladiator shit or something. Like it's like the level of adrenaline is just like I'm trying to catch my breath for like the first 5 minutes, and that's always a thing, because like breath control and like most of my stuff is like densely lyrical, whether it's we open with my song Iconoclast, and so that's like there's a lot of words in that thing, so it's always like a challenge from a breath control perspective. But even beyond that, it's just like I'm trying to like catch my breath to like come down from this like adrenaline burst. You just get like injected right away. Like as soon as you run out, you just like look at the size of it. You're just like, what the fuck is happening right now? So it's definitely another level of adrenaline, and it's crazy. But then you settle into it, And I felt great about that set. And also, yeah, like you mentioned, Rock Worcester. I don't know how to say it, man. I was trying to learn how to say it all. I was asking all the staff. This was the first festival we did in Belgium. So this was the first show of the whole tour. And that was also massive, and they also pulled up. And it was a shorter set. It was like 30 minutes. So that was kind of like my warm up for the whole tour. Of course, still gave my all, and hopefully it didn't feel like a warm up to anybody watching. I certainly didn't approach it like a warm up in terms of I went my hardest. So can't even really say it was a warm up, but it was still the first show. So you touch down, you're adjusting to jet lag, and then you're kind of just like thrown out on a stage. You know, the first one is always it's kind of like a cold splash of water to the face. Like, holy shit, okay, that's right. That's what we came here to do. Now I remember. So, you know, that set was really, really magical as well. And we did that one. And it was just 30 minutes. And then this one we're talking about now in the Netherlands with the 20,000 people was down the rabbit hole. So this was the second show. And so I felt good having done that first set, you know, to build up into it. And so then for this one in particular, I just felt like really like once we got into it, I felt like I had them, you know, like I had the crowd like kind of like in my hand and like everyone was with me and we were really like bonded on an energy level, you know, like it felt really good. It was one of those ones where I was just like, oh shit, hell yeah. Like this is a massive crowd of people, but like we're all sharing in this together. Like I really felt that way, which is great because like I never know with that many people. I'm like, are the people in the back like just kind of like, you know, just there because they have to be somewhere, you know, or just there because like their friends came, or maybe they just got tired, they got burnt out on the main stage. They're like, yo, let's take a break. I guess we'll just watch whatever's on this other stage. And sure, that might be why they make their way over there in the first place. But it was so dope because like throughout the set, I would be like, what about in the back? And it would just like, hands up immediately, like in the back. And like I heard the yelling like off in the distance. I was like, holy shit, like they're also tapped in. So that just felt really, really good, you know? And I have to assume a lot of the people there didn't necessarily like know what my show was or even maybe know who I am at all. You know, like that's what's cool about the festival scene. You know, at my headlining show, everybody is there to see me. Even if they're just going with their friends, you know, they still understand like, oh, okay, this is going to be this guy, Harry Mack. He's going to do a freestyle set. I feel like at a festival, there's such a awesome opportunity to like cross over to new fans and people who have no idea what you're going to do because everybody's just there to hear music. And there's only, you know, 2 or 3 stages. So you have to be somewhere. So there's a lot more like checking out new stuff in real time. And I love that. You know, I'm all about starting from scratch with people. As we know, that's what Guerrilla Bars is, you know, and in a way, that's what these festival stages are to a degree. You know, of course, there's the people that know who I am, know what's up, and they're up front and they're there to see my set. But then there's a lot of people, too, who I'm just trying to be undeniable and show them what I'm all about within that hour, you know. So, no, I felt great about that one, man. It was epic.
Yeah, so dope, man. Some of my favorite shows we've ever done. And those were back to back. Like, we had, I think, 12, like I kind of keep forgetting these numbers, but like, you know, over 10,000 out Rock Worcester. And then the very next day drove down to the Netherlands and then did the down the Rabbit Hole Fest. So just starting off with absolute adrenaline.
Yeah, absolutely crazy, man. Yeah, so crazy. But yeah, shout out to everybody that rocked with us, man. I'm so grateful to all of you. The fans are just amazing. It's always such a cool reminder every time we go on the road, just like what a special community of fans we have, you know, like it really is just, there's always such a positive feeling in the rooms that we're in or in the tents that we're in, as it were. It's just really, really dope, man. And it reminds me, you know, we work so hard throughout the year and so much of what we do is done from studios and behind computers and editing videos and putting things together to share with the audience, you know, digitally. But when we get out there on stage and we're seeing people face to face and it's like, I'm really feeling that energy in real time right in front of me and it's undeniable. It's like such a special thing. And it really does fill me with gratitude. So much love to everybody. Can't wait to get back out again. And we'll see y'all out there, man. I don't know when, but we'll see y'all out there when it happens again. I can't wait.
Me neither, man.
Hell yeah.
That was super fun. Dope, man. I got a little moments of flow action if you want to tackle this.
Of course, bro. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Today, I pulled a clip. I'm not sure if you're familiar or not. We haven't really talked about this, but it's Branford Marsalis.
Branford Marsalis, of course, yeah, from the legendary Marsalis family, brother of Wynton Marsalis, and other, I think 3 other brothers that are all famous jazz musicians. So the whole and their dad is a famous jazz musician as well. Yeah, no, Branford
Did they play together?
Yeah, they've recorded together. They kind of have different approaches. It's interesting. Wynton Marsalis is like very much kind of a, how would you say, like sort of a traditionalist in a way. Like he's very big on sort of like preserving sort of the like authentic, his version of what is the authentic version of jazz, I guess, and a purist in a sense. And then Branford got into some more kind of like experimental things. It was a little bit more inclined to take it in new directions, but no, but Branford's one of the greats.
I came across a few things from Branford. Like he also gives like a lot of talks and interviews and stuff like that. So I came across a lot of those are at like conferences I see, like, or like maybe just like keynote speakers at like jazz music events. But this one was just kind of, I'm not sure what it's from, but someone he's telling someone a story about a lesson that Art Blakey once kind of gave him.
Hell yeah.
So that's what this video is.
Art Blakey, one of the great jazz drummers, one of my favorites. So excited for this. Let's check it out.
I was listening to John Coltrane and Blakey walks by. Art Blakey was this fantastic old great jazz drummer. And he says, well, what do you think? What are you doing? Trying to learn how to play like Coltrane. And he says, you're never going to learn how to play like Coltrane like that, which to me is ridiculous. You should listen to the man. He says, so if I want to play like Coltrane, I shouldn't listen to Coltrane? And he goes, well, when Coltrane was your age, what the fuck do you think he was listening to? Tapes of himself in the future? And then he walked away and it was like... So it was like a very subtle, well, it wasn't subtle at all, but the lesson was everybody that you see as a finished product had a developmental stage. And what we do is we foolishly rush to the end of the process as though we are good enough to start there. And once I started listening to all of the people that influenced him, how I heard his music was totally different. So thank you, Art Blakey, if you're up there, which I doubt.
Damn, that's awesome, dude. Hell yeah. Love that clip. Love what he's saying right there. Oh, you know what? I got my sound effects back, I think. Oh, I don't think I do it. I don't want to mess with it. So never mind. Yo, actually, all right, brief intermission. The keyboard that I used to trigger my sounds broke on tour in Europe. So it's a cheap one, and I had it crammed in my suitcase. And I only pulled it out a couple times. First, a few of the keys broke. I was like, that's fine. It was like the lowest 2 keys. I was like, I just won't hit those ones. But I plugged it in today, and it just didn't even fire up. So I think it's toast, man. I was going to try to trigger my sound effects off my typing keyboard, but I was a little concerned that it might mess something else up, and it didn't work just now. So I'm like, I'm not gonna risk it and make sure everything's still recording. All right, we're still good. All right, Branford. I love the clip. It's awesome what he's talking about here. Nice. And really cool that's a gem that he got from Art Blakey, who is another one of the greats, one of the greatest jazz drummers of all time, most influential for sure. And yeah, I mean, I think it's so true, you know, and for me, usually I feel like it's usually a 2-step process, right? Because we get excited about music and we fall in love with the artist that we love, and it happens in an organic way, you know? We're not doing it strategically. Like, we're not like, oh man, I should fall in love with Coltrane's music so that I can study him and become great like Coltrane. It's just like, you listen to it and you're moved by it and you're like, yo, this is amazing. What is this? I need more of this. And you start going down the rabbit hole, right? And that usually just happens. I mean, I think when it's happening in an honest way, it's completely organic and it's not something that's done strategically. So, you know, you fall in love with who you fall in love with, and of course you're going to listen to a ton of their shit. So I'm sure, you know, Branford was listening to Coltrane in part just because he loved Coltrane, right? As well as to learn from him. But for me, it's always, it kind of starts there, and then, you know, you become obsessed with who you become obsessed with. Like for me on the drums, it was Philly Joe Jones. You know, I'm just like absorbing everything I can from Philly Joe. And then eventually the second phase is to be like, well, wait a second. Who was Philly Joe obsessed with? You know, I'm obsessed with him. I'm trying to learn everything that he has to share. But he didn't come out of nowhere. You know, he didn't just poof out of thin air. All of a sudden, there's this Philly Joe Jones. Every artist is part of a lineage, right? So it's like, well, how does he connect back to the lineage? Like, who are the cats that he was as obsessed with as I now am with him? You know, and then you come to find it's like these older drummers from the swing era, you know, before his time. So he's checking out Papa Joe Jones, of course, you know, the original Joe Jones. They were both named Joe Jones. So you had originally Papa Joe was just Joe Jones, and then you had Philly Joe Jones is from Philly. So instead of he couldn't just be Joe Jones because there was already a Joe Jones. So he became Philly Joe Jones. And then I don't know if it happened exactly in this order, but then eventually you started calling the OG Joe Jones Papa Joe Jones. Anyway, that's one of the guys he was checking out had the same name as him. How crazy is that? Like if I was like, yo, I've been checking out this freestyler from back in the day named Harry Mack. Like that's crazy. I'm LA Harry. I'm Portland Mack, you know? Anyway, but yeah, he's checking him out, or Big Sid Catlett, you know, Kenny Clarke, you know, these are some of the drummers that Philly was checking out. And so then you go back and you start to study them, and it's just a beautiful thing when you start to connect some of those dots, and you'll hear things in some of these cats that had inspired the person you're obsessed with, in my case, Philly Joe, and you'll say, oh, wow, I wonder if that's where he got that from. You know, I wonder if that's where he got that idea from, you know? And of course, we can't know, you know, because we can't, unfortunately, ask Philly Joe, but it would be awesome if we could. But you start to sort of like fill in these gaps of knowledge, and you start to get even like deeper into the source. And it's in all genres. This is the case. You know, it's cool. Like Jay-Z is a prime example of this, because if you ask somebody of my generation, you know, who are your top 5 rappers, you know, Jay-Z is a likely candidate. Like he very well might be in that list for a lot of people, right? If he's not in that list, it's going to be a lot of his contemporaries, right? It might be Nas, it might be Biggie, it might be Pac, you know, whoever it is that you, it might be M, right? Of course. Whoever it is that you put in that category of rappers that were basically creating during the same time as Jay-Z. But what's so cool is like when they ask Jay-Z who his top 5 is, he's saying people like Big Daddy Kane, you know, Cool G Rap, KRS-One, guys who were really popping in the 80s, you know, before he was known. And so there again, it's like, you know, these are the people that he still to this day considers like the greatest to ever do it. And so if you want to understand where a Jay-Z comes from, you have to go back and listen to these cats that he was obsessed with, because that is the lineage, you know, that's the DNA of what he does now. And yeah, I think it's just such a cool thing to do, to take that second step and not just be obsessed with the one person, but to follow the tree back. And I think it gives you more depth too, you know, and I think it can help you develop your own original voice, right? Because in general, the more influences you pull in, like the broader your base of influence, the more unique your voice will be. And everybody has different influences that they're pulling in, you know, and even like it gets real crazy when you consider like the non-musical influences, for example, like how did being born in Portland influence my voice, you know, for example. But even just speaking musically, it's like we all pull in these different influences, different people for whatever reason resonate with us, and we become obsessed with this different sort of like roster of influences. And so, you know, early on when you're really obsessed with like one person, you might start to sound like them, you know, like a lot of rappers get obsessed with Eminem, and then, you know, you kind of sometimes, and why wouldn't they, right? By the way, before I go on, he's one of the greatest of all time. You know, Eminem is a genius. Like I feel as though he is truly a genius. That word gets thrown around a lot. How could you not be obsessed with the way that he does it, you know? Yeah. But a lot of people get really into it, and then sometimes it can be a little transparent, if I'm being honest, where sometimes you're like, oh, okay, cool, I hear it. You're doing the Eminem thing, you know? But the thing about Eminem is he's so great, and he's also inimitable. I think that's how you say that. You cannot be imitated. You know what I mean? Like you can't, nobody can ever do that again. And I would argue that pretty much all of the greats are that way. And in fact, every artist is that way to a degree. But Eminem certainly is... you're not going to be able to to do that, right? And so I think what's even cooler is to be like, well, who does Eminem love? And if you listen to him, he'll shout out LL Cool J as an early influence, or Tretch from Naughty by Nature, right? Being a huge influence on him. That's one of his favorite rappers and someone he considers to be like an unsung hero of the 90s. If you go check those guys out, and become obsessed with them for a while, that's going to filter through your ear and through your heart and through your unique lens, right? And it's going to emerge as something that is unique to you, that still has this sort of crossover in terms of like the DNA and like the creative makeup of what became Eminem. But, all of that stuff went in the blender and came out as Eminem on his trajectory, but it'll all go into your blender and come out as you on yours, Plus you'll have that Eminem influence in there too. So I just think it's a great way to hone in on a unique voice, Start with the people that you just genuinely are like, this is the greatest ever, and then check out who they checked out, and see if that resonates too. And I think often it does. So,
definitely. Yeah. I'm always so intrigued on who are the influences of some of my favorite artists, because I love the fact that a lot of people's new original unique sound is usually just a combination. Like it's a math problem of like all the top things that they listen to added up, and you can start to identify where that is. Yeah. And I love as an actual musician taking it the step farther where it's okay, who are you kind of looking up to now? Use them as an influence, but go one layer deeper. Who are their influence? Yeah. Okay, go another layer deeper. Who influenced them? Yeah. It's really dope. And like he said at the end here, he's like, once I started listening to the people that influenced Coltrane, it's like I heard his music. It just exploded how I heard his music. It was such a different lens to view it through, and I think it's so dope.
100%. Yeah, and you can really start going crazy down those rabbit holes too, which is really fun. And that's a great way to learn the history. It's such an organic way to learn the history, as opposed to being well, you better learn the history of this music. It's start with the people that you genuinely fuck with, and then study their heroes, and it'll take you back in a way that is connected to you, instead of just a classroom discipline, all right, I'm gonna read the history book so I know the history. It's a great access point to learning the history of the craft. But man, I love it. Shout out to Branford. Shout out to Art Blakey, one of the greats. I wonder who his favorite drummer was. I wonder if he's quoted saying anywhere. We should try to find that out. But awesome. Love it, man.
I need more Art Blakey content out here, because just the way the way the story was told, you're just so blunt about that entire exchange. It just sounded hilarious.
Yeah. Art Blakey sounds like he was a real character. I remember reading the liner notes on one of his records, man, because he had a group called the Jazz Messengers, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, which was a rotating cast. I mean, it was always Art Blakey, of course, but the supporting musicians in the group. It was kind of almost like a college of jazz. Cats joined when they were young, and then they sort of graduated out of the Jazz Messengers. At a certain point, he would cut them loose, and he liked to have the young lions in his band, so he was always looking for the next generation of talent, and he would bring them in. It's really cool part of the history. But yeah, I was reading the liner notes of this Jazz Messengers record, and it was such a crazy story. I was like, I cannot believe, is this actually true? And you never know too in jazz. There's so much folklore, so you never know what's true and what's just fun. But they were the Jazz Messengers were on tour in the U.S., so they're just driving on a freeway somewhere, and then they pulled off at a rest stop, and there was a funeral happening at the rest stop, I guess, or adjacent to the rest stop, and they just randomly walked up and listened to a bit of the service. And then at the end, the person leading the service was well, does anybody have any other words they'd like to share about the deceased? And Art Blakey looked around and then raised his hand and was if no one has anything else to share about the deceased, I would love to take this opportunity to talk to you all about the importance of the only true American art form, jazz.
Oh my God.
I was yo, that is insane. And low-key mad disrespectful, but also so awesome and unbelievable. That's how much he cared, y'all. That's much he cared. He would take any opportunity to educate people about jazz. And there was another story too I heard about him. I can't remember who was telling the story, but it was another great jazz drummer of the generation beneath Blakey, and he was talking about how like he was hanging with Art Blakey, and he was like, "Yo, Art, I just got to ask you, man, like, how is it that everything you play is so swinging? You know, in jazz, like swinging, like for a drummer especially, that just means like it's so great, basically. You know, how is it that everything you play is so swinging?" And Art Blakey was like, "Well, you hear what you play in your head before you play it, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, I guess so. If it doesn't sound swinging in your head, don't play it." So it's that simple, y'all. It is that simple and also that deep. But I love
hilarious.
it. Moments of flow with Branford Marsalis. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man. I'm learning a lot about jazz in those, which is fun.
Yeah.
A lot of cool like interviews from some of the jazz greats there, so it's been super fun.
Hell yeah.
Dope, man. Well, thanks for taking a peek at that.
Absolutely.
Yo, we got another Meet the Team here, and hell yeah, man. This is Todd, who edits our podcast. He edits the video, so Todd's up this week, man.
Hell yeah. Shout out to Todd, first editor ever hired on Team Mack. Been working with this man for a long time, since 2020. And he immediately joined on. It was I can't remember, maybe like Omegle Bars episode 5 or something like that. He would probably know the first one that I handed off. I edited the first few episodes, and then I was like, man, this is taking literally all of my time just to make these and edit them. We got to expand, and then and got connected with Todd, and he's just been killing it ever since on all things long form, not just Omegle, but everything else. And yeah, it's great to have him on the squad. Shout out to my man Todd. Bars right there. I would hit the air horn. It's killing me to not have these sound effects, but very excited to hear from our boy Todd. Let's hit it.
Hey, Harry and Sam. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Todd. I'm a long-form editor for Team Mack. I edit Omegle Bars, Guerrilla Bars, and the Flow State podcast. I'm also a sometime tour videographer, and I edit and direct for TV as well. I joined Team Mack back in October of 2020, and it's just crazy that we've been collaborating for this long. My question for you is this: how do you handle the impact that you have on people's lives? Whether it's directly like in Omegle Bars 18, or after a Guerrilla Bars, or in the comment section when someone says, "Hey man, you helped me through some really tough times." How does that knowledge affect you as a person? And how does it inform how you approach your work? And finally, was there a moment in your journey where you realized the ability you have to move people? Thanks, Harry. Looking forward to your answers.
Hell yeah. Shout out to my man Todd. Without sound effects, we are going to do claps.
It's a great question.
Awesome questions. Yeah. I guess I'll answer them in reverse, because the last part was there a time when I realized that what I do, has the potential to move people? I think I always felt that it had the potential to move people, but it was more of just a feeling and an intuitive thing based on the way the room would change, like when we started freestyling. And that dates back probably all the way to probably when I was in middle school, even when it was just a few homies up in the attic with us during our ciphers. And we would just get on a roll, and we would either be really killing it or really getting into some funny stuff, and the homies would just be like busting up, like dying, laughing on the side, or just like, woo, like going crazy on the side. And it was like, yo, the energy in this room is changing, like in real time because of these freestyles that we're doing right now, like because of this energy of this music and this creativity. And that was powerful. And that continued through high school when we're at the house party, and now there's more people. And again, it's like as soon as the cypher starts, like the energy is changing. It's like we're molding the energy, in real time. That's crazy. How does that even work? And then all the way through, through college and all that, like every time that I would kick a freestyle, there was this shift that would occur, and it's like magic, So I think I could always tell that, like, wow, this is a really powerful thing, like it's more powerful than it would seem to be on paper. If you explain to an alien what a freestyle rhyme is, like, oh, it's an improvised rap, cool, but it's like, nah, wait till you feel it though, because it's this really special thing. But I think, I didn't necessarily predict for myself that I would be able to have like a really meaningful impact on so many people in the way that I think Todd is really asking about here, you know, like people in the comments being like, bro, you got me through COVID, you know, or like, wow, man, I was really struggling mentally and like I found your videos and like that really helped me. I guess if I
mentioned OB18 too.
Yeah. OB18 with Diesel Optics. Yeah.
Diesel Optics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, I guess if I really had thought about it, then I would have had to know that eventually, if I was able to succeed at this and build an audience that it would lead to having that kind of impact on people's lives, only because music has had that impact on my life, you know, not that anybody got me through COVID per se, because, but I mean, when I was younger, you know, music was so important to me and so meaningful to me. And so I had thoughts and feelings like that, like, man, you know, this group Blackalicious is like carrying me through right now, you know, or whatever it is that I was listening to. So it makes sense, you know, in a logical way. But if I'm being honest, it never crossed my mind that like I would be the person having that kind of effect on others because, you know, I'm just eternally a fan, you know, like I'm just eternally like a student of the music. That's how it feels to be me. It's kind of similar to like a lot of times, like I look around, I ask our friends, people our age, like, yo, do you feel like an adult yet? And it's like, no, I feel like a kid that is in their mid 30s somehow, you know? And it's like, it's similar to that. It's like, yo, do you feel like an artist now? Like you're really doing it? And in some ways I do. And sometimes I do, you know, and I've obviously had a great deal of success at this, which is really beautiful. And I'm super proud of that. And, you know, when we go out on these stages, it is this kind of like, wow, like we've really arrived here. You know, we're here right now. This is really happening. So yeah, at times I know, but a lot of the time I'm like, nah, man, I don't really feel that much like I'm an artist. I still feel like I'm a fan and a student of the game. You know, I still look up the same way Jay-Z is still going to say Big Daddy Kane, Cool G, these are the GOATs. You know, it's like I'm still kind of like looking up to the people that I loved when I was young. So it is trippy to now receive messages and sentiments that, you know, I might have felt inside my heart when I was a kid listening to Blackalicious or The Roots or Outkast or whoever I was checking out. Yeah, it's just like mad humbling, man. Like it makes me feel obviously it makes me feel good inside to know that I've helped people and that the things that I've shared with the world have had a positive impact on people. And it's just like it's important too. Like I try to remind myself when I happen to read a comment like that or a DM like that. And I'm not always in the comments or in the DMs, you know, because I personally have to keep some boundaries just to keep myself healthy, you know, have a healthy relationship with social media and things like that, because I've definitely had issues with like tech addiction and stuff in the past, and it's still ongoing. So I'm still figuring out my relationship with these things, as we all are, right? This is kind of the challenge of our time. But when I do read a DM or comment, or if a DM or comment is shared with me from a team member, like, hey, this came in today, you know, I always try to remind myself, like, no, like this is a real person saying this, you know, like this is real. Because it can feel like, you know, all of these comments and DMs and all of these like text-based communications that exist in the digital sphere, like sometimes it's like, well, that's just the internet, you know? But it's like the internet is just an empty box that's filled with human beings, you know? And so like, somebody really shared this, like somebody really feels this. And so like for me, a lot of times it's like, honestly, just like close my eyes and like take a deep breath and like remember like, yo, this is a real human being that has been impacted by the things that we make and share with the world. And like, that's incredibly meaningful. And it deserves my gratitude, you know? Yeah, just always reminding myself that, because as the audience has grown, those kinds of messages have come in at a rate where I couldn't even keep up with it if I wanted to, you know? And wow, what a blessing, you know? I mean, it's like unbelievable that is the case. And it's just inspiring. It makes me want to keep going harder, you know? And it is also sometimes a bit overwhelming, because it's like, wow, oh my God, like, I was just this kid trying to learn how to play the drums really good and how to freestyle really good, you know? Like I was just trying to be like the best musician I could possibly be. You don't think about like, nah, man, at a certain point, like people are gonna like credit you for helping them get through these struggles. And to be fair, if I play a role, it's only a partial role and probably a small role. Really the person that deserves credit for getting through the hard time is the person that got through the hard time. They're actually the one that pulled themselves through. I'm just honored that I played any kind of part in helping to, nudge that person through. But at the end of the day, they really deserve all the credit, because nobody can make it through anything unless they find it within themselves to push through, right? So also reminding yourself of that, I think is really important, because you want to also have humility, as this thing grows and as you start to have an impact on more and more people. You don't want to start to feel like, yeah, man, I'm the shit. I help a lot of people through hard times. I'm really important. It's like, okay, man, okay. You're just a human being like everybody else, I have my shit just like everybody else. And so, it's this balancing act too of not getting like numb to those kinds of comments and also not, letting any of that go to your head in any way. But no, it's a genuine honor to have had a positive impact on people. I mean, it's an honor to have had a positive impact on anybody, one person, with my art. I mean, like, sincerely, like, if one freestyle making one person's day, that's the whole thing. That's the whole game. Like, you won, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
So to have that at scale is kind of like unbelievable, man. And I'm just like super grateful. And it does fire me up, and it kind of underpins, what we do. Like I use my art to share positivity, and to try to really highlight this thing of human connection. That's what I think it's all about, the energy exchange. That's what freestyling is to me. Like, I can't do the freestyle without my audience. I mean, I can, but I prefer to engage in this connection with other humans. That's what I think really gives it life and really makes it beautiful. I think my best freestyles have been those in which I collaborated with other people. And so, yeah, it's just fuel, man. It's fuel for the fire. When it gets hard, when I don't feel like freestyling today. It's like, well, think about it, man. Like, sometimes when you do what you do, you have the opportunity to help somebody else out. And that's always a noble thing to do. And that's always an important thing to do, I think. We should all be trying to help each other out, because life is hard. So, yeah, man.
I think it's interesting, like, when you're talking about that fine line between, someone's just like, hell yeah, and this shit, my stuff is like, help, like, you get a little, like, almost too far cocky with it in a way that's not as pure anymore. And then on the other side, it's like almost, if you didn't believe that at all about yourself, and it's finding that middle ground. Cause like, I'm going to ask you, like, is it hard to like accept that? And then when you do, you do projects such as like UC Health, where you're like, you're accepting that that's kind of the purpose of this type of video in a way. You're going to be put in a situation that, like, we need your positivity, Mack, like, come through, man. Is that a hard thing to kind of like accept and then allow yourself to like give more of that and see where it goes?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's hard to accept in a way, or sometimes it baffles me, the level of it. Like, that's what I mean, that it can get a little overwhelming, like, to see a lot of comments like that where people are like, yo, this, you're helping me out.
It's like a responsibility almost.
Almost. And I'm forever grateful too. I want to make that clear. It's not overwhelming in a bad. I'm not like, please stop, guys. Right. Please stop. Like, it's great.
Right.
And I always appreciate the vulnerability that people have when they share those kinds of messages with me. That in and of itself is incredibly beautiful and admirable. But sometimes it is baffling, because it's like, again, I'm just like, man, I was just a kid that was obsessed with music, trying to figure out how to do music really well. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, man, now it's like, holy shit. Like, I didn't always see the context that it could be used as a tool to help other people. And to help people who are in need. So, sometimes it is a little hard to accept, but then, I think that's also a beautiful exercise for me, to be like, no, man, this really does have this impact, like that's good. That's a good thing. And I can admit that, because I'm somebody that is very hard on themselves, as I've talked about on previous episodes. And, I have this tendency for whatever reason, and it's something to work on because it's not very helpful, to say, no, that wasn't good enough, or here's everything that was wrong with that, the voices inside my head are not always that kind, especially when it comes to creativity, you know? And so it's good for me to be like, no, man, this is important what you're doing, and this is positive, and this does have a real impact on other human beings, and that matters. And, you know, I have this resistance to being like, yeah, man, you're good. You're doing a good job, Harry, for whatever reason, you know? And it's an ongoing challenge. And, you know, it's not like a super dark space inside my head all the time or anything like that, you know, and I've made massive strides since, 10 years ago, you know, and actually it's really kind of amazing that my entire sort of career as a public figure or whatever you want to call it, like me being Harry Mack publicly has sort of been this like documentation of my overcoming of some of these fears and these insecurities and these dark voices inside of my own head. And in some ways, I think the reason, maybe this is just a theory, that my stuff is so helpful to others is because I'm almost like projecting through my freestyles the way that I want to talk to myself. You know what I mean? Right. It's like I'm pushing this positive voice out that I know is true and that I know is right. And it's almost like, you know, like early hip hop, like cats were flexing about having like the dopest car and like the dopest outfits and like the dopest chains. But like most of those cats were like growing up in the South Bronx and didn't have money. You know, they didn't have any of that shit, but they were still rapping about having it. And it's kind of this thing of like you're manifesting this reality. You're like speaking it into existence before it's true. And then through speaking it, it becomes more true. And I think it's really powerful. It's that whole thing of like the thoughts that we have like shape our reality, not to get too woo-woo with it or whatever. But it is kind of like that in a way. It's like I'm putting this message out that I know is true, but I can't always embody it inside my own mind. But the more and more as I keep sharing it, as I keep pushing it out, and then as I see it having a positive impact on others and that's reflected back to me, it allows me to just like nudge myself just like ever so closer to actually like experiencing that same level of positive messaging within my own mind, if that makes sense.
Totally. It's like kind of sometimes I can give the best advice or conversation to friends about like something they're struggling with. Yeah. Because it's something that is literally challenging me. And I understand like kind of like, yeah, man, that's hard. And like, this is what's hard about it and yada, yada. And it like sounds like I got to figure it out, but that's just because I've been trying to figure it out so much. Like, you know,
100%. But man, I just want to say it's so beautiful, and I want to say thank you to everybody too who has ever reached out with a message or a comment like that, whether I got to read it or not. Thank you for your vulnerability, and thank you for listening and checking out what I do. And it is just like the ultimate honor in life, sincerely, to have made something that has helped you in any way, even if it's just it put a smile on your face during a shitty day. You know, your boss pissed you off and you watched my video and it made you feel a little bit better. That is like what I do this for, and it is the ultimate honor, and I appreciate you so much. So thank you. Hell yeah, man. And thank you to Todd, editor, original editor, the OG, the OE, not old English 40 ounces, original editor. And we're so happy to have him. So grateful to this man. So much of what you see coming out on, especially on the YouTube channel in long form, this man has had a hand in, a very serious hand in. And this podcast as well. So we wouldn't be here with y'all on Flow State without this man's efforts. And he kills it every time. So much love.
Shouts out Todd, man. True professional, true profesh.
Indeed. Hell yeah. Well, should we keep it rocking?
Let's keep it going, man.
All right.
Fan submissions up next here.
Got some questions from the fans. We'll see how many we can get to here. But at least a couple of them. So let's see what we got this week. By the way, if you want to submit a question, harrymackofficial.com/flowstatepod. That's where you make your submissions. You could send a video. You could send some audio. You could type something up. However you want to kick it to me, go for it, man. I'm always excited to answer your guys' questions. harrymackofficial.com/flowstatepod, baby. Just flowstatepod, not flowstatepod, baby. We'll have it down there in the links. All right, here we go. Question number 1 comes from Martin. And this is actually, we have an audio recording here. So, hell yeah. Shout out to Martin. Let's take a listen.
What's up, Harry? A Flow State podcast. I'm a big fan from the Netherlands. I've been to the Anomaly tour in Tilburg. It was awesome. And your freestyle about James Bond saving the dinosaurs will always be in my memory.
Hell yeah.
And that's also what my question is about. What makes a good or memorable freestyle for you? Because I can imagine that you are not remembering every freestyle you are doing, but maybe some are more memorable, some are not. And maybe if someone plays a bit from your freestyle, do you remember those freestyles, or are they just a bit vague for you?
Hell yeah. Shout out to Martin. Thank you for the question. And yeah, that show in Tilburg was crazy. Netherlands always shows out. Appreciate you pulling up for that. And yeah, James Bond saving the Bronx or saving the dinosaurs in the Bronx or something like that. That was a crazy one. But honestly, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think the thing that makes a freestyle memorable to me is usually, it could be a couple different things, but one big one would be the word suggestions themselves. Like if they're really novel and interesting, that's going to be memorable. And I'm not going to remember the rhymes. Like I don't remember the lyrics to that James Bond dinosaurs thing, but I do remember kind of like the story of it. And I remember these different things that happen. I remember like asking the audience, like I like pointed to one part of the audience and I was like, one person turn on their flashlight to be the meteor that blows up the dinosaurs. I was like, I think I see it in the distance. I see a light. And then I was like, I broke the fourth wall and asked somebody to turn a light, but then a bunch of lights came on and I was like, oh wait, how am I gonna? And then I was like, it's a meteor shower, multiple and then like, so I remember that. And I remember the feeling of doing that freestyle. So oftentimes at our show, this freestyle is from the sort of narrative part of the show where I ask for a character, setting, and dilemma and then create like a extended, sometimes 15-minute story freestyle from the point of view of that character. Those are always kind of memorable, even though I don't remember the rhymes themselves, just because the suggestions are always so unique and interesting.
For that one, it was like the characters, like what was it? It was
James Bond, yeah.
And then the problem, saving the dinosaurs, the location, the Bronx.
Yeah, the Bronx, exactly.
Got to that.
Yeah. And I had to do crazy like time fast forwarding and reversing to like make the Bronx relevant. I was like, this will eventually be, it was like, this will eventually be the birthplace of hip hop. And then I did save the dinosaurs. And then it culminated with like Kool Herc was like a velociraptor. It was like the original DJs and rappers were dinosaurs because in this version, the dinos lived. So they invented hip hop in the Bronx. Yeah, that shit was wild. Holy shit. It's all by the seat of my pants, y'all. We build the plane mid-flight. But yeah, however novel the suggestions are, that often locks it in, which is why that narrative song gets locked in because it's always crazy and wacky. Sometimes more than others though. So that's one reason. Or the most memorable freestyles to me too are like the ones that happen on big platforms, like, freestyling for Joey Badass, Kendrick Lamar, even doing things I did on TV, like The Ellen Show or Jennifer Hudson, or doing Fire in the Booth with Charlie Sloth. Those always are memorable, of course, just because of the setting, and it's a big deal to be in those rooms doing what I do. So those always stick, of course.
Would you be able to like think of what those raps actually were and like re-rap those though, or you just kind of remember it as the experience?
Not verbatim. Yeah, I just remember the experience. I mean, some of them I know some of the lines. Rest in peace, Prodigy, Harry Mack, visual raps, you gotta see. That's how I started the Kendrick one. That one, it's like I watched it a bunch of times because back then I still watched my stuff a lot. Now I don't watch back as much. I'm kind of just like always moving forward to the next thing. But back then in the beginnings of it, like, I would watch my stuff back more, and especially when I edited it, I would be hearing it again and again and again. So a lot of those freestyles would stick in my head, just the cadences and the sounds of them. And sometimes for whatever reason, a certain line will just stick in a way that feels really catchy. And even if I can't remember the lyrics, it's like I remember the sound of it almost, like the sound of the cadence of it. But there was one from Car Bars, though, that like you or somebody, either you or Khan pointed out that it was like catchy and kind of stuck. And then it's been stuck in my head. Mack is a Martian, hungry and starving. Won't stop till I'm in Madison Square Garden. Yeah. So like that bar sticks, but never word for word verbatim. Like I've never like ever known a whole one of my freestyles top to bottom. I don't think.
Word.
I could probably rap along with it, like Venice Beach Part 1 or something. Nah, that one's too old. But there's somewhere maybe I could rap along if it was playing and like hit like 70% of the lyrics or something like that. But
Word.
the lyrics are always fuzzy, but the moments are memorable. And if I watch it back, I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, yep, I remember this. Lines that get big reactions kind of stick, you know, and those will stick day of. Like if we're out doing Guerrilla bars and there was a certain line that either I thought it was really fire or it got like a really big reaction, or ideally both, then that will stick for the day. Like I'll be like, yo, that clip was crazy, and because of this line, you know. So I'll remember the lines, but eventually they all kind of leave my memory. There's too many bars out there, man. Too many freestyles. But yeah, great question, man. Great question. Shout out to Martin. Thanks for coming out to the show. More memorable freestyles to come, I hope. And hope we get to see you there. Hell yeah. Let's see what else we got. Brian Dubs. Brian W says, I love words, so I'd like to hear your opinions about word selections from your audience. I have a list of Harry Mack words in my notes on my phone. Hell yeah. Hopefully I get to do them justice at some point. I believe there's a sweet spot, a Goldilocks zone, between simple words and super rare words that require a definition. I'd love to hear you speak on this topic. Please and thank you for all your content. It's therapeutic and inspiring. Much love. Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here. And great question. Yes. I also agree that there is a sweet spot or a Goldilocks zone, as you put it. I love that. You know, I think the sweet spot often is achieved through balance. Because a simple word can evoke a beautiful freestyle, you know? It's all about how you free associate and how you sort of expand on that word and sort of explode it out into a universe of ideas. The simplest word could lead to the most epic freestyle. And that's one thing that I want to challenge myself with more, is like going back to some of these words that I kind of have almost on my like personal like do not accept list because they've been said so many times, like shoes. You know, why? Why should shoes be ruled out? It's not like I've rapped everything that could possibly be rapped about shoes. You know, I've only really attacked it from like a couple different angles. Like, why couldn't it just be the most epic verse about walking in somebody else's shoes, for example? You know, like, and that's limitless, you know, and I've never done that. So there's that. You know, the simplest word is almost infinite in how many different ways it can go, as long as you're willing to expand your mind. And I say this to myself because I could definitely dig deeper on some of these supposedly played out words. And then on the other hand, you know, super complicated words can be awesome, but if there's too many of them, it becomes kind of a different game that's less interesting to me. You know, to me, the game, I'm big on like staying true to what I consider the game that I'm playing, you know? And that morphs and changes a bit over time, but it also kind of always stays the same. You know, there's this feeling that I'm going for. What I'm interested in is freestyling, obviously. You know, I'm interested in improvising. And I'm interested in trying to create something that is like poetically awesome in real time. But if it becomes a little too much about trying to hold in my memory a whole bunch of crazy, like niched down, like medical terms or words that I've never heard of in my life, and I'm just really trying to just like use mnemonic devices to like remember the syllables in order, and it's almost like a puzzle that has nothing to do with the freestyling, then that's where I kind of become less interested. I'm like, okay, this is a game for somebody else. You know, like this is a game for somebody doing like a memory challenge, and that's awesome. And memory is a huge part of what I do. So don't get me wrong, I do love the challenge of remembering all the words. I really do. But then it tips. There's a point where it kind of like tips over into something else, and it can just be kind of like, this is actually getting in the way of the creativity a little bit. I don't ever want it to get in the way of the creativity, where it's like all I can hope to do is remember the words, and that's taking up so much of my mental bandwidth that I'm not really getting into flow state. You know, I think that's really what it is it can kind of break the flow state a little bit for me. So usually it's a balance, like one or two really unique words that are challenging and complicated is great. You know, I can probably hold on to those. And then balancing that out with a few kind of simpler words is probably going to help us hit that that sweet spot and that Goldilocks zone that you're speaking about. So I completely agree with you, man. I completely agree with you. And I want to challenge myself to go deeper on some of these simpler words and figure out how I can just take them to new places, because I know that I can. And I will say also about that, I think there's another interesting challenge. If somebody says shoes and I go into this whole extended narrative about walking in somebody else's shoes, that could theoretically be really beautiful and awesome. And it was like, holy shit, like that's a whole new direction for me. I would probably be very excited about it. And I imagine a lot of you who are watching this podcast, who are the diehard Mack fans, would also be excited about it. Like, wow, that's a whole new different flip on shoes. Like, he didn't say, I'm earning checks like Nike and stripes like Adidas. I'm bringing a New Balance every time that you see this, or whatever I've done in the past. The funny thing is, it might not connect very well with the live audience right in front of me, right? What might have connected best with them is the New Balance and the Adidas and the Nike. So there is this sort of entertainer showmanship element to what I do that also sometimes makes it a little bit harder to, in my mind anyway, a little bit harder to like go to whole new like unexpected terrain with these simple words, because I don't always know if it's gonna hit, you know, because like bar flips on like the obvious like shoe brands within that category are gonna hit, you know, and it's not gonna confuse anybody, and everyone's gonna be like, yeah, he killed shoes. He went off on those shoes. I kicked it hard like steel toes. I dropped the anvil on the sandal. You know what I'm saying? Like, that will work. It'll be highly effective for the live audience. Whereas the other thing is almost more like I might lose the live audience a bit, but it might translate through video. So that also, I think, plays a role in this conversation a little bit.
It's interesting too. It's like, some of the longest ones have the most like niche definition, or so it's like you can use them, but it's such a specific medical term that like really it's not going to give you a great verse that we can all go along with.
Right.
So that's like, sometimes it's just like, okay, like I could do this, but like the full song will suffer. But then on the other end, it's like the most simple ones are the most wide open, kind of like you're saying. Like, I've seen you crush on stage. I can think of the for sure, or the as you put it in that song. Yeah. Or like I think we had like in Austin like once.
I think we had if too. If I don't, we've had if.
It might have been if.
Yeah, I think we had if in Austin, but we probably had it
you
too.
Just snap.
Yeah.
You snap off that. You start breaking down each letter and
exactly.
Like pronunciations, and that's super cool to see.
Yeah, 100%. Because that word that means like fear of long words, it's kind of like a gimmick word. Like, I don't think it's a real word. Like, when you Google like longest words, one of them that comes up is this word that's really long that like the definition is fear of long words. And it might technically be in the dictionary, I don't know, or in some editions of the dictionary. I'm not saying it's like totally fake, like it's a like it's a conspiracy or some shit. But it's kind of a joke word, you know, like, and so there's only so much you can do with it. And the reason I say that it becomes a different game that's less interesting to me is because at that point it's just like people are just listening, waiting for me to say that word. And then as soon as I say it, it's like ding, 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 he did it, you know? Whereas to me, that's never been what's interesting, you know? Like, I would never describe what I do as like, oh yeah, like this guy, any word you can think of, he'll say it at some point in his rap. Like, that's not what's cool about it. It's more like, yeah, people give me random suggestions and then I use those as inspiration to create freestyles. That's what's fun to me anyway. That's what gets me juiced up creatively. If it was just like, I'm just going to rap and then at some point I'll say whatever word you say and they're like, okay, 10 points for that one, 20 points for that one. He got them all. And I understand, because that is part of it. Like, I do say the words, you know, and we have the words on the screen and we put a check mark sometimes or change the color. Or we highlight the fact that I'm using the word. So I totally get it. It's not like I'm baffled as to how some people latch onto that part a little more than the other parts. Totally get it. And there's nothing wrong with it and it's all good. But just for me creatively, I like to expand, you know, and I like the fact that any word, simple or complex, could birth a really amazing freestyle. Sometimes the combination of two simple words could lead to something as well. You know, putting two words together can birth an idea. There was one, I can't remember what it was, but it had something to do with fish at McDonald's with those three girls in the back of that football stadium, man, in Atlanta.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So anyway, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, man, great question here from Brian.
Yeah.
about word selection. And hey, Brian, I hope at some point I get to hear the words you have in your notes app. I'm sure they are juicy and right in that Goldilocks zone. So
I see that a lot. People are like ready just in case there happens to be a Guerrilla bars like in your city ever. Like people are like, I've got them ready, man, like locked and loaded.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, it is very common. Yeah, a common comment as well. Like, yeah, I got my words ready. So yeah, much love, y'all.
Yeah.
All right, maybe we do one more.
Yeah, let's get one more.
All right, let's see. This one comes from Jesse L. Jesse says, I recognize that AI could never take your job, given the fact that it's a human in front of other humans doing something spontaneous. True. Okay, I feel you. However, have you ever talked how the basis of AI is built on language models? A language model determines the next logical thing to say and inputs that, and your whole career is basically being a sophisticated language model within different rhythm. Yes. Interesting question here. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it. Yes, I have thought about that quite a bit, actually. The fact that I think you could make theoretically a very, very competent AI freestyler. I don't think that would be too difficult. I mean, I have no idea how to make AI, so who knows?
It's basically happening.
Yeah,
right. Like when Suno like makes a song in like 30 seconds. That's technically
right.
What else are you gonna call it?
Right.
It just freestyled the song for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, every AI song is freestyled. It's not always very well, and not always giving credit to the actual people that created the lyrics. But I totally see how my sort of techniques as a freestyler are in some ways like algorithms in a way. It's like, I have a structure, I have a structure that I often use. And really it's many structures, setup punchline is a structure. So like you could program setup punchline into an AI, I'm sure, so that's a structure, right? Of seeing a word and then putting it second and rhyming with it in advance. So there's this setup and punchline. That's kind of like an algorithmic way of putting rhymes together in a sense, or doing like an A-B rhyme scheme. Again, this is patterned. This is a pattern. You could easily program that for an AI to rhyme A-B, or any other scheme you can think of. In fact, you could program an AI to do insanely complicated rhyme schemes that would be too long and elaborate for me to hold in my own head. A-A-B, A-B, A-A-C, A-C-C, D, and so on and so forth. Shit, sometimes people give me on Wordplay Wednesday and I'm like, oh my God, there's no way. I can't even attempt this right now. But so in that sense, all of the different kind of like structured techniques that I practice and utilize in performance are sort of algorithmic, and they're sort of models that I'm using. The thing is, in my head, I'm not thinking about them that way necessarily when I'm performing. They're not like at the forefront of my mind. They're kind of like in the background. Ideally, they're in the background kind of underpinning what's happening. They're informing the choices that I'm making, but it doesn't feel like I'm like, okay, I'm going to do A-B, then I'm going to do a setup punchline, transpose so that the rhymes land on beat 3 instead of beat 4, then I'm going to go into triplet flow. I'm not thinking about any of that shit, ideally. Sometimes, like if I'm tired or nervous or there are other things distracting me, sometimes you do kind of actually have to lean on the technique to get you through it. But that's never the best version. The best version is the flow state where you're not thinking about the technique at all. It's just there. You've drilled it so much, you've practiced it so much that it's just, it's always there for you, serving what you're doing. And then I'm thinking more like bird's eye view. Like, let me tell this story about James Bond saving the dinosaurs in the Bronx. That's what I got to think about, or whatever. Or let me focus on connecting emotionally with this person, who has shared something very deep and true about a struggle that they're going through. Let me be in my heart right now. I don't want to be in my mind right now. I want to be in my heart. And that's why we practice these things. So yes, I totally see, like, ever since this conversation around AI has dominated, the zeitgeist, right away I was like, I language models. That's what I'm into, kind of, in a way. Not AI language models, but language models nonetheless. And that's kind of what I'm practicing, is different models and different algorithms and different ways of puzzling the words together so that they'll rhyme and be effective. So yeah, that's why I kind of laughed when you first said I recognize that AI could never take your job. Although when you finished the sentence, it made a lot of sense to me. It's the fact that I'm a human in front of other humans doing something spontaneous, and that part, obviously, I can't envision how AI would replace that. And I think for me, what's interesting is that if you had 100 different freestylers, they each are going to have their own perspective and their own lens and their own, even if they all train the same, what we're calling models. Like if everybody masters setup punchline, if everybody masters A-B, if everybody masters the various triplet flows, and like if they all put the same kind of inputs in, that you're going to get 100 different versions of it coming out because everybody has their own lens and their own perspective and their own history. And I think that's what's cool about the human version. And I know your question wasn't necessarily saying like, what's your take on AI replacing the human freestylers or anything like that. But you did make me think about it. I think that's what, to my knowledge, AI doesn't necessarily have, right, is like a perspective. And I might be talking out of turn because this is out of my wheelhouse. I don't know very much about AI, if I'm being completely honest with you. But in my view, if you give the AI, like if you ask a freestyler, like, man, why do you approach it this way? It might go back, it'll go back to their influences, like we were talking about earlier, because I was checking out this person at this time. And then I started getting into this genre of music at this time. So, well, how'd you get into that genre of music? Well, I grew up in this country during this time, and this is the music that was happening. My dad was into this music. He played in a band that played this style of music. So it wasn't my choice. I was just hearing it. It's like, that's fascinating. How did your dad get into music? And so on and so forth, back through the lineage of humanity, right? It's really deep and rich, the places that these sort of like lenses and perspectives come from. And it's incredibly meaningful, I think, when we start to peel back the layers to understand why each person approaches it the way they approach it. So if it was an AI and it's like, well, why do you have that perspective? Because it was programmed. That's not that interesting, right? So like, to me anyway, like, yeah, that perspective was programmed in. It's like, oh, cool. End of story, So yeah, I think, for now, the AI freestylers, I'm not scared, man. I've also battled the AI freestylers on stage at my concerts many times. Not actually, but that prompt has been given at least twice. Harry Mack versus AI, and I was victorious both times. Granted, I rapped both characters. I also rapped the AI, so I probably gave myself an edge, but I tried to kill it as an AI. So who knows?
Mack GPT.
That's right. Hell yeah. But great question, Jesse. Appreciate it. And shout out to everybody that submitted their questions. Once again, harrymackofficial.com/flowstatepod is where you send those in. And in addition to sending in questions, you can also send in a video of you kicking a freestyle. We love to tap in with the community and hear you all kick some freestyles. Speaking of, before we get into this week's freestyle submission, I do want to apologize for a mix-up we had last week. The freestyle that I reacted to was credited to the wrong person. So want to do a correction here and now. And but before we get into this freestyle, I just wanted to mention that and apologize.
Yeah, man. Just a classic little Matt mix-up. That's on me. I mixed up two different ones. We actually played a video from Saul Good, but I accidentally credited it to, in our show notes here, Wozz Beats, and we showed Wozz Beats' message. Sometimes people send in messages along with. So shout out, Saul Good. We had your freestyle on last week. It was sick. And sorry for the mix-up there. And in fact, I actually pulled up the message from Saul Good, which we should have read with the freestyle last week. If you want to at least touch on that, so we're not leaving anything behind here.
100%, yes. Shout out to Saul Good, epic freestyle last week, my boy.
Yeah, great.
My reaction was for you, so go back and check that out. Somebody tag Saul Good, let him know, and let's read Saul Good's message. This again goes with the freestyle from last week. Saul said, "Harry, It's been amazing watching your talent grow. Your podcast has given me the confidence to write and release my own bars, and your recommendation of The Artist Way helped me push through creative barriers. I've heard Miles Davis could think ahead for his entire solo, planning the next run through the chart while playing." Damn, is that true? I never heard that. That's insane. When you freestyle, How far ahead do you plan? Are you focused on the next rhyme, or do you have the entire upcoming phrase mapped out? Much love, Saul Good. Yes. Great question. How far ahead am I thinking while I'm freestyling? That's crazy about Miles Davis thinking ahead for the whole solo. I wonder where that comes from, because I got to look into that, because that's mind-blowing to me. No, I'm not like that at all. I don't plan that far ahead. I'm pretty linear. So I'm just slightly ahead of where I'm at. There's this sort of like overlap layering thing happening. And usually, like, the easiest way to think about it is if I'm just doing like setup punchline rhymes based on target words, whether they're a target word being thrown to me, like if somebody throws out apple and that's the target word, on top of these beats, haters get tackled. Keep you away from the doctor like an apple, So when I'm doing that kind of approach, it's like halfway through that bar, I'm starting to open up the mental bandwidth to look ahead to what the next target word is going to be. And so I might free associate from apple and think of core. So then it's like, over top of these beats, my haters get, and right around there, I'm like, oh, from apple, I'll go to core. Because I already know I'm going to say tackled, and then I know I'm going to say something about an apple. And because I practiced it so much, my brain can kind of just fill in those gaps like in real time, while at some point I'm like thinking of core and I'm storing core. I store core for more up there. And so I'm just kind of basically layering them like that. And then sometimes I might not have a target word right on time. So then I might just kind of start free flowing a little bit. I kind of break away from this. And then I can free flow for quite a while and it can stay kind of juicy and interesting. But then I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? Where are we going with this? And then I look for another target and then I grab the target. I kind of put it up here. And then that pulls me back into this layering thing. And then I'm back in this. But it's really quite linear. Even when I'm doing like the narrative song, story rap at my show, the reason that segment is so wacky and crazy is because I don't know. I'm writing the story in real time, which is like not the recommended way to do it 9 out of 10 times. Like if you're like writing a TV show, like the fans get pissed when they get to the end and they're like, I feel like they were just winging it this whole fucking time. But that's me when I'm doing the narrative part of my show. Sorry. So yeah, I'm not super far ahead. I don't think of like, what's the last bar going to be? I kind of just let the pieces fall into place as they fall. And I guess through practicing for years and years and years, the pieces that fall into place make more sense like than they would have 10 years ago. It's like more logical. Like, oh yeah, the last bar, it'll come to me. Like the last bar should be a reference to the name of this song. You know what I mean? Like when we do like
you
the
can
topic
like continue
song.
a thought.
Yeah. Like we do this thing live that's a topic song, so the suggestion might be like, one of them on tour was like the reason behind it all, That was the suggestion for the topic. What is the reason behind it all? It's quite wide open. So now after years of doing this, it's like, I'm not thinking like, oh, I should end the verse with the reason behind it all. I'm just doing the verse. But then as I start getting close to it, I'm like, oh, we should go back to the hook now. I get this like spidey sense. Like I've been rapping for a while. Let's go back to the chorus. And then I'll be like, oh, it should be that. And so then it just comes to me. I'm like, my demons and my fears, I'll be freezing them all. They like, Mack, tell us the reason behind it all. Hook, right? So like 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have had that intuition. So it's kind of like that thing in golf where it's like, how do you hit such a tiny ball into such a tiny hole so far away, so consistently? It seems like you just get lucky. It's like, I do get lucky. And the more I practice, the luckier I get. That's how I feel about freestyling. It's the same thing. It seems like I'm planning it out more now, but I'm actually not. It doesn't feel that way to me. It's just I now have, my intuition is honed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I love the narrative. Like my favorite part of that is just like when we first start the beat after you collected, character, location, dilemma, is you immediately like kind of jump into a hook.
Yeah.
And it like immediately tells us kind of where you're going to go with it.
Yeah.
But to me, that's always one of the most fascinating things is like generating the hook and setting up like your plot structure within that amount of time is always something to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Awesome.
The hard thing would be to not do the hook first, but to start on the verse and then do the hook. That's way harder. But yeah, so who knows? Maybe next tour, that's how we'll do it. Hell yeah. Shout out to Saul Good, epic freestyle from last week. Sorry again for the mix up. Thank you for this message. And now we're going to get to the man that we credited last week Wozz Beats. We have Wozz Beats, actual freestyle here. Shout out to Wozz Beats, and thank you, Wozz, for your comment on the last video, letting us know about the mix-up. Appreciate that, and apologies again, but I'm very excited to hear your freestyle now this week. Should we run it?
Yeah, just as a reminder, he sent a message as well that we actually read with Sauls, but basically told a quick sorry for the confusion, y'all. He basically told a quick story about like how he was on the school bus as a kid and like they was, you know, an opening to jump in the cypher, but he wouldn't let himself do it even though he felt ready. And he's like, shout out to the pod for inspiring me to like finally get behind the mic again to send this in. So
Let's go.
Full redemption arc here.
That's fire. Hell yeah. That's fire. All right, Wozz, let's hear it, man.
Right, sitting here working, spreadsheets lurking, looking at the cells, thinking what the hell, I gotta stay true to what I do, sick up the flu, in the background, you see those shoes, M-A-double-T, that is me, aka Wozz Beats, getting lively on the MIC. Yeah, I'm bringing the heat, just like degrees, do it lively and easily, like ABC and 1, 2, 3. Yeah, make it hot in here. I'm bringing the heaters, bringing the bars straight to the speakers. Yeah, bass in the treble, never gonna settle. Hot like a kettle, hard like metal, hard like granite. Gonna go around the whole red planet. Gonna go around the whole red planet. Yeah, take to the stars, right to Mars, straight to the moon. See you all soon, like Armitage 2. Gonna get those views.
Hey, hell yeah. Choo, choo, choo. Fake air horns. Oh, man. Yo, that was fire. Shout out to Wozz Beats. I'm glad we got to hear you freestyle for real, my friend. Great rhythm through the whole thing. Like, I've talked about this a little bit before, but one of the things that I really love as a musician is rhythmic clarity, you know, because sometimes you get this rhythmic ambiguity and that can be cool. And sometimes it's actually the most effective thing if it's the right thing at the right time. But by and large, like, I love when I am hearing exactly where the artist intended to put the thing rhythmically. And that doesn't mean that it's like 100% metronomically precise or anything like that. I'm not saying that it needs to be like totally quantized. Sometimes you're like, I'm feeling exactly where you're intending to put it, and you are intentionally putting it way behind the beat, and it's fucking awesome, you know? So it's not any one particular thing, but you can always feel, at least I feel as though I can almost always feel when it's like, yeah, you really mean this pocket right now. It's intentional. It's landing the way you want it to land, as opposed to just like, okay, you're just kind of feeling it out, and sometimes it's working and sometimes it's not. But this, I felt like, had really strong rhythm and rhythmic intentionality from the beginning to the end. Like, I always felt your pocket the whole time. And there was one really cool, like, little polyrhythm where you were like, I can't remember what you were rhyming with because it wasn't granite. You switched to granite, but it was like, something hard like metal. Oh yeah, the kettle. Hard like metal. Bubba dubba babble. Hard like granite. That part was sick, and that was like a little polyrhythm almost, or something. Everyone always flames me in the comments for my terminology. They're like, technically that's not a polyrhythm. It's actually called it this. I don't know, but you were doing.
What is a polyrhythm?
A poly. See. Don't ask me, man. I think polyrhythm is two different rhythms. I feel like, there's this hilarious documentary by Elvin Jones, one of the great jazz drummers, and it just like randomly goes into voiceover. It's like showing some like abstract like images of him playing a solo, and then it like randomly goes into voiceover, and he just starts in cold going, "How to explain polyrhythms to a man on the moon? Poly means many, and rhythms. So many rhythms." Okay, nice. But really, I think a true polyrhythm is two different numbers of evenly spaced notes that land at the same time every so often. So like a polyrhythm would be like 3 against 2 is a classic. So that was like 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. One of my hands is doing 2 beats that are evenly spaced, and the other hand is doing 3, and they start together, you know? So a more
Yeah.
complicated polyrhythm would be like 5 against 7. Well, I can't even do that. Jacob Collier could do that. But that's like where one hand is doing 5 and one hand is doing 7, and they land together. So they fill the same amount of time, and they're both evenly spaced. So if you could mute one, you'd be like, that's a perfectly spaced even group of 7. And you mute the other, that's a perfectly spaced even group of 5, and they're filling the exact same amount of musical time. That's a true polyrhythm. So what Wozz was doing is not that. To me, it's kind of in the same category of things. But what he was doing was like basically a 3-beat long repeating phrase, but the time signature of the beat is 4/4. So the standard way would be to do a 4-beat thing, but he's doing a 3-beat thing. So it kind of starts to go over the bar line in this strange way. The rhymes are not landing like in the most predictable space, but it's consistent. So that's like the da, 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 3, 1, 2, 3, a 1, 2, 3, hard like cattle, 3, a bum bum pebble, 3, a dun dun ba da da. We're like in 3/4 kind of. It feels like we're in 3/4, but it's being superimposed against the 4/4. What's that called, y'all? Remind me. I can't remember. My terminology is off, but it was fire. I really liked that part, as you could tell by my authentic reaction in the moment. And dude, it was dope, man. Hell yeah. I'm glad that you were able to jump in, especially knowing that story of you feeling, like you choked in the cypher. Consider this full redemption, my friend. And hopefully we have redeemed ourselves as well for confusing you last week with the other submission. So thank you for sending that in, man. I enjoyed it a lot. I liked how you were referencing things around you as well. The shoes. I think you had an Excel spreadsheet open or something like that. You were looking at the cells, thinking, what the hell? I love that part. But it was a lot of fun, man. And hell yeah, keep on going, bro. I love it.
Same thing I think when I look at an Excel page.
Same. Yeah, what the hell? I don't know how those work, dude. Calendars, lists, all quite complicated. Freestyles? Okay, cool. That we can do. Now, thank you to Wozz Beats, and shout out to all the freestylers that have submitted and hopefully will continue to submit on into the future. Love hearing from you guys. It's awesome that there's a growing community of freestylers out there in the world. And, I think a lot of people might kick a freestyle here and there with their friends and never necessarily think about actually sharing it anywhere. And so it's cool to me that some people who might be in that category are actually filming themselves and sending them in. It warms my heart, and I'm all about people sharing their creativity. So please continue doing so. HarryMackOfficial.com/FlowStatePod. Boom, baby. Another episode in the books. Episode 40. It's a decade celebration. We didn't even talk about it. Damn. And then I called Todd the OE original editor, but that's also the Old English 40 ounce. So it all comes full circle, man. 40 ounces of Flow State. Y'all know how we do. Someone needs to make an NA 40 ounce for your boy. I would drink that shit.
It would have been so funny to have. You're just sipping at NA 40 this whole time.
Yeah, it's so extra. That'd be good merch. Okay. Damn, that's complicated to produce, but maybe we'll try. We need a brewery.
Start there.
Yeah. Nah, this was awesome. Shout out to everybody that's been listening. Thank you so much for tapping in. Shout out to the Flow State family. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your freestyles. Thank you for your love. And we're going to send y'all out the way we always do. Let's rock.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. Come on. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. Off top when we send it through. I said we rockin' for you. Said we rockin' for you. Hey. H Mack and the Flow State crew. Episode 40. Yeah. Another decade celebration. This is episode 40. Shouts to the fans around the land that support me. Thanks so much for tapping in. I gotta keep it honest. It means the world to me when I get to read your comments. Thank you for your questions and your suggestions. We be out here celebrating the blessings, learning lessons. I'm learning in real time. Put my lyrics out to the people. I hope you feel mine. It's a real climb. We ain't even at the peak yet. Feeling like I didn't have a chance to speak yet. I mean, we just getting started. And when I kick my freestyle, it's never never half-hearted. Over these beats, my lyrics sweet like syrup. Shouts out to the rap purists out there in Europe. Just got back from 3 weeks, I can't believe everything we got to do, everyone we got to see. Feeling me with humanity, cause at times I feel stressed, I get panicky. Sometimes, man, it's difficult to manage me. I be thinking, how can it be? I be feeling like I'm drowning underneath the cloud canopy, like I'm choking, like it's difficult for me to get open. Then I hit the stage and for a moment I'm frozen. I can't believe that I've been chosen. Much love to the fans, everyone that's coming through the rock, coming through to listen while I'm rhyming off the top. Sharing your honest thoughts, sharing your words so that my freestyles can be heard. Moving through this life so fast to be hitting like a blur. I don't know where to go next, man, the time I isn't sure, but I do it all linearly when cooking the free. Right up off the mantle, leave them shook, my G, that's how it has to go. I spit a nasty flow, and shouts to the people that's watching the Mack and grow. Every day I'm learning and I'm facing every challenge, and I'm learning from influences like Branford Marsalis. Yeah, I said I'm about to learn from Coltrane, then I'm about to go a level deeper. When I start to spit the heaters, I drop the ether. I'm about to burn them right to the core of the earth, the Mack's returning. I'm getting busy with these illy dope poems. I was obsessed with Philly Joe Jones. I had to go back and learn about Papa Joe, and once I got his vocab, I'm unstoppable. Big Sid Catlett, I'ma take it to the swing era. Every time I rhyme, I bring terror to the competition. I'm on a mission, I'm dominating. I was waiting for too many years, I was calm and patient. Now it's my time, I study the history, and I can flow right up off the top so exquisitely. Let's go. Next beat, yo, okay, yeah, okay, we not done, yo. Yeah, right off the top of the mantle, you know that I'm letting it spark. I said I learned from Philly Joe and then from Clarke. Going back through the history, no longer a mystery. Who'd he learn from? About his influences, I am concerned, son. I wanna know the whole entire story to broaden my horizons. Now, I be vibing with some artists from the 40s, the 30s, back to the 20s. Pre-recorded music, influences was plenty. Yeah, I wish we had a record of them so that we could hear. I wish we had a way to travel back many years to hear what cats was playing before records was created. Off of the top, it can't be debated. Y'all know I'm slated to win this. Where should I begin this? I step up to the podium, y'all know I'm never timid. I leave war without no blemish. I'm killing it right up the dome. Every time that I rhyme, I'm shining like chrome. They love how I get in the zone. I'm making it happen, taking the action with inventive flows. Narrative songs on stage, always memorable. James Bond is about to save the dinos, so velociraptors can be DJs that spit rhyme flows. Yeah, we changing the history, dog. It's embedded. I can't remember the lyrics, but fuck it, I don't sweat it, cause I remember the energy, I remember the vibes, embedded in my memory till the day that I die. Yeah, I put it out in the open and make you feel it. I was born to kill it, my brain is hotter than a skillet. I flip it like a frying pan till I'm a dying man. They think they on my level, dog, they better try again. I remember the vibes I felt when playing violin. Now I'm in the clouds like Leviathan, I am him. I'm designed to win, you can feel it in your spine again. When I bless them, I'm teaching y'all a lesson. Get hype and stage dive. Lyrically, I stay fly. Real human connection cannot be replaced by AI. I have a perspective, I see through a lens. I rep my collective, just me and my friends. We making it happen and move in all directions. Proper balance with the word selection. I'm staying in that Goldilocks zone. Yeah, I be shining like gold and not chrome. I got it on lock, I'm rocking the spot whenever I be popping off top. H-Mack, I'm getting busy. I be leaving people dizzy. Hard to see me make it look easy. Y'all know I bring the hot speech. Yeah, this week we got to hear from Wozz Beats. Shouts to the freestylers round the globe. Hey, shouts to every rapper making beats explode. I'm crushing every MIC that I hold. I'm really in flow state, or so I'm told. I ain't have the mental bandwidth to pay it no attention. Shouts to all the people leaving comments, leaving mentions. Shouts to all the people tapping in when I spit a flow. Episode 40, another flow state video. Yeah. Y'all know what it is, baby. Flow State Podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. We love you. We'll catch y'all soon. Peace.